The mighty Atlantic salmon, a subject of legends, respect, and awe from people and fishermen around the world. A fish that has mythical qualities, an icon that symbolizes Canada, the North, a clean environment and strength. Tragically today, a fish looking down the dark tunnel of extinction.
Every living thing is sacred. That nature has such a beautiful way of balancing itself. Balance and harmony has been the key of sustaining herself. We humans have tipped that scale because we're taking it for granted that we're going to be fishing from the bottomless pit. But as we know today that salmon as well as other species are pretty much on the verge of extinction. And as these fishes are being eradicated, then this balancing system is no longer functioning, so we could be facing a lot of problems.
There are some things we do know, and many that we don't.
We know, well, we don't know, but we believe that there is this interconnectedness, interdependency with our natural world, that everything has a purpose. The word nedukulim was very much practiced in them days, that no one species would be taken beyond the carrying capacity of that species. So the assurance was there because in the language it teaches you, and it daily reminds you the important role the salmon has, not only for the health and food for the people, but also their role into the ecological cycles of everything else. And if and when the language is intact, it didn't need to be too much emphasis put on where, and because each community or each person would be living up to their responsibilities to ensure that the salmon will always be here. So the word nedukulim was very, very, very important and critical of maintaining the balance.
Well, for me, a salmon is my relation. We've been here for thousands of years, and just by being here, being indigenous, we're indigenous. Salmon is indigenous here, so my people have been living and dying here for at least 14,000 years. Now, where did we go? We went into the earth. We became a part of this nourishment cycle. We fed the earth, we fed the trees and grass, we fed the animals, we fed the fish, who fed us, and then when we die, we go back. So we've become a part of this whole environment, genetically, physically, environmentally, spiritually, culturally. So that salmon is my relation. And that's that connection I have as an indigenous person, as a Mi'kmaq.
What is the story behind this amazing animal? What is its fate, and what can we do? And what is its incredible life cycle all about? Members of the scientific community have a good understanding of the natural life cycle journey of the salmon and what is required for a healthy stock or to complete their journey every year.
The journey of the Atlantic salmon starts in fresh water. That's where Atlantic salmon are born. So adult salmon spawn, which means they're laying eggs, and those eggs are fertilized, and they make little nests in the gravel where they lay their eggs, and then they cover it over. These nests are in freshwater streams that are found all over the Atlantic coast, including here in the Bay of Fundy region, but also all around the Maritimes. Salmon start their lives as eggs, and they look like little pink beads. They're kind of piled up in gravel or larger rocks that we call cobble that are on the bottom of the stream. And they're laid in October or November. After 2 to 3 months, they start to hatch, which means the little salmon break out of the eggs. And instead of swimming up into the stream, they actually swim down, and they live in the spaces between the gravel. So alevin have a yolk sac that's stuck on them, and it's basically filled with their food, and they absorb that food slowly when they're very small. When they get to the end of that, they will actually come up out of the gravel and they will start feeding. They'll eat very small organisms that are found in the stream. From when they hatch to when they come out of the gravel, the salmon spend a few months in between the spaces of the rocks. When they come out, they're called fry, and they're different now because they need to get food, and they don't have a yolk sac anymore. They look like a very small salmon with stripes on its side. Those fry will be growing, and they'll start to be called par. After 2 to 3 years, they become smolt. Smolt is a really important stage. We say they smoltify. It means that they're transforming from fish that live in fresh water to fish that can live in salt water. So their biology on the inside changes. After that point, once they're smolt, they're then able to move out into estuaries and bays, like the Bay of Fundy, and into the ocean, where they will move around and feed and grow. We know certain things about this phase of their life. With inner Bay of Fundy salmon, we know that they probably stay in the Bay of Fundy for most of their marine phase. That makes them different from other Atlantic salmon, because a lot of Atlantic salmon will go out into the Atlantic Ocean, travel very far. They've been caught in Greenland and all around the Atlantic coast. And they could spend 1 or 2 or more years in the ocean feeding and getting larger. Eventually they will come back. They'll come back to a freshwater stream, but not just any freshwater stream. They'll come to the stream where they were born or very close. And they do that by following their nose, because they actually, when they're young, they learn the smell, and they call them chemical cues, the smell of the stream where they're born, and then they find that again. So they imprint on the smell of the stream that they were born. Later, as they come back to the coast, they return and they start to swim upstream. So you'll have both male and female salmon that are now maturing adults that are ready to reproduce, and they will spawn. The female will create a depression or a nest in the gravel with their tail. When they lay the eggs, a male or more than one male will very quickly try to release their milt onto the eggs. This is how the genetics of the salmon come together, and the eggs are fertilized. And then it's gently covered. Each female might have several of these nests, which we call reds. And they might actually be able to spawn again. That makes Atlantic salmon different from a lot of other species of salmon. Meanwhile, the eggs are in their red and they're starting to mature again. That's the journey of the salmon.
Now, in terms of migration, in my humble opinion, I don't think there was much emphasis put on where they go, because in a community, I cannot call myself a fisherman or any of those trades that as we know of today, because everyone had to learn to extract those gifts from our Mother Earth without having to compromise the ecological integrity of the area or the life of that salmon, because everything depended on the cycles. So when the salmon is finished, other species will come in, and you leave the salmon to go on their journey. When they come back out again in the spring, only a certain sex will be taken, and the rest of it will be left alone.
I spent a lot of time on the local river in our community, Afton River, Pumpkin River, in my younger life, and Sam would come up that river every fall. Talking to the community, everybody's getting ready to go fishing, waiting for, the rain, the water level go up, and go out and fish salmon. Usually around October, November. It supplied a lot of food fish for our community. And today, it's a place where the younger people learn how to fish salmon.
Well, with myself and my boys, we tend to throw all the females back in, and we keep the males. And we like the smaller salmon. They taste better.
I'm more interested in the fall salmon because the fall salmon is not put in danger as much as the summer salmon. And in the fall, when the water's cold, they stand a better chance of surviving. They're very tough fish in the fall.
And in the spring, we catch a lot of sling salmon as a bycatch when we're fishing trout. And I know in hard times people would eat them, but generally we don't eat them because we prefer the fall run salmon.
They say you should get one good feed of fish for every run that there is. A lot of elders, old timers would say that, and that would help you get your nutrients for the year. Like your body needs all those minerals and vitamins and oils and omegas and stuff, and each species of fish is unique, right? Some are healthier in certain minerals than others. When the runs are the healthiest, that's the best time to be out there getting them.
When you eat a food you've eaten for a big part of your life, it brings you back to a real good place. People, memories, family members, people you fished, hunt with. There's a lot of memory and relationships and traditions built around fishing salmon. It's important to indigenous people. If you're indigenous to this food, it's probably the best thing you can eat. But here we are eating food from all over the world, which is probably not the best thing for us. We look at our health and you can see it, how we're suffering, and diet is a big part of it.
Salmon was a staple for First Nations. It's one of these things that, again, how important it is. It was a food, and it was for us to survive. So it wasn't just, salmon, look pretty, nice and pink, whatever, but it was part of our diet. Having that taken away, or not being here anymore, that probably would affect us as generations go on.
I mean, diabetes, all these different sicknesses we have is because we don't eat wild game. We don't eat the fish. We don't boil our fish. I mean, in my household, we boil a lot of fish because that's where you get all your energy, all your proteins, and all your minerals and vitamins is from boiled fish.
Well, every year we try to have a feast. And of course, we always have salmon. We always have moose. And again, one of the importance is the staple of the salmon, and it's always been here, and it's always been, a First Nations food in our community.
I think we're a little early, or a little late.
Members of the Mi'kmaq community have seen a drastic change over a short period of time, a definite depletion of the stock.
The salmon is in deep trouble now. 2 years ago, I caught 30 salmon. Okay? Now I catch and release fella, so it doesn't bother me to catch them. I have fun catching them. To me, that's the fun of it. If you need it for food, take it for food. But anyway, I caught 30, and last year, same river, I caught 1.
We learned in effect that, when we were studying how some salmon rivers can just basically stop having salmon coming up them. That was how they were. These salmon that come up the exact same river somehow got stuck, got caught, and they didn't make it back up that river. So in a few years, it was less and less and less. And next thing you know, there's no salmon. You got, places like Salmon River with no salmon in it for 20 years.
Years and years ago, there was not a big issue, or we didn't think there was an issue. We would go, we would fish wherever we wanted to fish. the fish was plentiful. We would, we would be able to, fish enough, to survive. Years ago that we moved, through the summer, through the lakes, the rivers, and we lived off the fish. Things have changed. Then all of a sudden we were starting to lose the salmon. We were starting to lose the trout. Our waters were starting to, fade away, or what was happening? How come, these waterways weren't as, as plentiful and as much water around as there was in the past?
The salmon fishery was closed years ago here, but a lot of these other activities that contribute to their decline haven't been addressed, because you just couldn't lay the blame on one.
There's all kinds of theories. As far as we can tell, I think a lot of it has to do with the long nets. They look like giant football fields. They're just floating around out there. Well, the ones that we followed that go to Iceland and back, well, they have to go through about, I think it's around 1,400 kilometers of about 400 fleets of these things going back and forth. And they're not catching salmon. They're catching other species, but of course these salmon go into these nets. And I think the mortality rate is way, way, way more than when they catch them and throw them over. I think the mortality rate is, phenomenal, because it was almost, there was a really good correlation between when that fishing started and when the fishing started to decline. So,
there's a lot of fish draggers, and what happens on the fish draggers, like in commercial industry, which I know about, is they bring in a load of fish, and if it's the wrong fish, they got to sweep it back off their vessel and back into the ocean, and it's all dead because they caught the wrong fish. So there's not a bycatch that I know of for salmon.
Historically, forestry and logging have really changed the habitat of the salmon by changing the nature of the lands all around the freshwater streams where they live. Acid rain is a big challenge for salmon in certain parts of Nova Scotia, and the salmon there very much struggle as a result of that.
They try to argue that there's conservation issues at stake and that we're to blame, but if you look at the actual statistics and what the First Nations people represent in terms of who's out there fishing and who's out there, it's a phenomenal difference.
We mostly do our salmon fishing during the fall. Yeah. We used to have a fish trap up in the East River, but there was so much pollution going through the East River, through the town, that we stopped putting in the fish trap. A lot of the elders didn't like it, the pollution going in and stuff like that.
Past few years I've been under the conservation of the whole activity now. Like, I did a little river restoration project last year where we had to open up a stream just to have fish to come in. We used to be going out all the time over in Merrimack Harbor there, and we used to fish them all the time, and it's over the years it's just getting harder and harder to catch. Yeah, overfishing the salmon and stocks going down, and habitat, like disturbance, like trees falling down. A lot of pollution in this area, people just disregarding all their trash and everything all the time.
I think the salmon would ask us to work together to make their home more hospitable.
If there was a salmon, what would he be saying? He'd probably be saying, look what you've done to my home, which is the water. Look what you've done to my home. It's polluted. It's not like it used to be,
The solution to the problems salmon are facing is not easy to achieve without a partnership with all.
Whenever there is a discussion as to how we can work together for the conservation, preservation of any species, the first hurdle that we can't seem to get around with, and that's the boundaries or the jurisdictions. Salmon doesn't know the difference between New Brunswick, Nova Scotia, or PEI because they're in their natural habitat. So I believe to do justice for salmon, I believe in a lot of cases we have to leave our jurisdiction head outside and transform the discussion. how we can help the salmon.
We have a number of Aboriginal and non-Aboriginal technicians, river technicians, working with us here in New Brunswick. Clayton's on loan from the Mi'kmaq Conservation Group, which is based in Millbrook, Nova Scotia. And he's getting first-hand experience working the smolt whale here with Fort Folly. And it's the hope of the Mi'kmaq Conservation Group that they'll begin to do some of this work on the Nova Scotia side of the Upper Bay. So it's been invaluable for Clayton to get the hands-on experience working with the Fort Folly group here in New Brunswick.
Right now we're participating in monitoring of Atlantic salmon smolts as they do their out-migration from the freshwater habitat. So the wheel behind me turns during the day and during the night, and the smolts swim into it. We trap them, and then in the morning we come back and we actually take our biological samples. We count how many we get in the wheel, and then we actually keep some for the live gene bank program, which is a program that DFO does in order to help recovery efforts of endangered and inner Bay of Fundy salmon. Once we're done that, we're usually done for the day. The smolt wheel will fish for the rest of the day as well as during the night, and we come back and we do it all again the next day.
I know what's best for my world, but I also need that ultimate prerogative to be able to say, this is the best I can draw from the mainstream and integrate that with mine to create that whole holistic approach. Because we need that today. Because we're no longer observing, we're no longer living with nature. We just visit it every once in a while.
The salmon aren't as plentiful as they used to be. They are an endangered. They are going to be an endangered species very short. One time they say there were salmon here, but that was before my time.
Any luck, Mikey? No luck?
No.
What would life be like without the salmon? Unimaginable? Not really. And the reality of extinction could be just around the corner in our lifetime, in this generation. What will we leave for our future?
Be a sad life. Because fishing is, it's not just about going out and getting food either, right? It's about going out and taking in everything that comes along with the journey.
We have to use the gift that the Creator has given us. And one of the greatest gifts I can see is the Western science. It brings a lot of good tools. And I think we should incorporate those tools along with the human consciousness or the Aboriginal consciousness of not only maintaining but sustaining the health of our system.